Hey, this transformation took me about 3 years. Now sure, I made some mistakes, and if I hadn't made them, I'm pretty certain that I would be able to make the transformation in around 2 years. But I'm happy with the process nonetheless. One thing that was great throughout my journey was that I enjoyed life to the fullest. I indulged in food that I liked, I had big and satiating meals, I didn't spend ages in the gym, and I took some time partying, including alcohol on occasion as well. And in this video, I'm going to show you the step-by-step process of going from skinny fat to ripped as effortlessly and enjoyably as possible, coming up. Hey, what's up guys? Niklas here from Ironbit Fitness, bringing you the best strategies and tools for getting ripped while keeping your lifestyle and minimizing your hassle. So if you're new here, consider hitting that subscribe button and make sure that you smash that bell. Okay, so what does the skinny fat physique actually look like? Well, the skinny fat physique can briefly be explained as the physique where a man looks skinny with a shirt on but fat with the shirt off. In other words, the skinny fat physique would be where one is not necessarily overweight, but do hold a bit of fat on certain places that doesn't show well with clothes on, which is typically on the lower stomach and hips. And as you saw in the intro, this was also the physique that I started my fitness journey with. So, with that said, how do you actually go from skinny fat to ripped in the most effective and enjoyable way possible? Well, that's what we're going to look at now. To achieve a ripped physique, starting at skinny fat, you are going to have two main objectives. Number one, get lean at around 8 to 10% body fat. And number two, build a fair amount of muscle mass. Seems obvious, right? Unfortunately, it's not quite that easy. Even though losing fat and building muscle is the way to go from skinny fat to ripped, there's still one big problem. And that problem is known as the skinny fat dilemma, which is, should I lose fat or should I build muscle first? In fact, this is hands down the most common question I get from people starting with the skinny fat physique. And it was also the very same question that I asked a few years back. The reason why this question is so common is because when someone has the skinny fat physique, they're not yet at the level of muscularity that they want, but at the same time, they're not yet as lean as they want to be either. And these two are somewhat of conflicting goals. So, what's the answer to this dilemma then? Should you lose fat or should you build muscle first? Well, let's look at that now. First of all, it is possible to lose fat and build muscle at the same time. However, if you start off as skinny fat, it's only possible if you are a complete beginner when it comes to strength training. And even if you are a complete beginner, both fat loss and muscle growth will be a lot slower than what they would if you instead focus on doing one of them at a time. So to overcome this dilemma, here's what you should do. If you're mostly skinny but have some fat covering your belly, then you should focus on building muscle first. Don't worry about getting those abs to pop just yet. You actually need to build some muscle in order to actually have abs to reveal. On the other hand, if you're a bit on the fatter side, then you should focus on getting lean first. The reason for this is that if you start bulking right away when you are a bit on the fatter side, then you will risk getting very fat within only a couple of months. Instead, by doing a quick cut first, typically for 4 to 8 weeks, you can get down to a lower body fat percentage, and then you can start gaining muscle for a good 6 to 8 months before going on a cut again. And if you're disciplined during your gaining period, most of your weight gain will be muscle mass. Now, I always recommend that you stay within the 8 to 15% body fat range. By staying within the 8 to 15%, you will always look good, but more importantly, you will always have a healthy body fat range as well, where you put on more muscle as opposed to fat during your lean bulks. This is because by staying under 15% body fat, you will have a better hormonal profile with better insulin sensitivity and testosterone to cortisol ratios, which are known to promote muscle growth. And this is where I made my biggest mistakes as well. After my first cutting phase, I shot up in weight and ended up well above 15% body fat in only a couple of months. This yo-yo dieting stole a lot of time as I had to do another cut that lasted way too long when I instead just could have continued building muscle for a long time. Okay, so now that you know what to do, let's look at how to best achieve both of these objectives one by one. Okay, so let's start with objective 1, which is to set up a cut or a lean bulk. In order to set up a cut or lean bulk, the first step is to figure out your maintenance calories. And here's a simple maintenance calories formula that works exceptionally well. Body weight in pounds times 14 to 17 Or if you want it in kilograms, body weight in kilos times 31 to 37. You decide which number in the range you use to multiply with accordingly to your daily activity. If you are mostly sedentary throughout your days, use the lower number. If you are very active throughout your days, use the higher number. And if you are moderately active, pick a number in between. This will just be a preliminary number and it doesn't need to be perfect. It's nearly impossible to get these numbers correct right away. And you will have to adjust your caloric intake later anyways as you are making progress. Okay, so the next step is to set up your caloric deficit or surplus. If you choose to cut first, use a moderate caloric deficit. This will be around 15 to 20% below the maintenance calories you just calculated. On the other hand, if you choose to lean bulk first, then use a slight caloric surplus of around 10% above the maintenance calories, which you also just calculated. Then after you have set your deficit or surplus, next would be to set up your macros. So let's start by looking at protein. To maximize muscle protein synthesis, both when cutting and lean bulking, then aiming for 1.8 grams per kilogram of body weight or 0.8 grams per pound of body weight per day is enough, as this will give you more room for carbs and fat. And on that note, let's look at fat. In order to maintain good hormonal balance and be able to have tastier meals, my recommendation is that 30 to 35% of your total calories should come from fat. This is a bit higher than the normally recommended intake, but having a bit lower protein intake with higher fat and carbs instead has been shown to provide some amazing benefits on testosterone production and training performance, as well as allowing for tastier meals and better well-being, all which are benefits that will balance out the potential and negatives of a lowered protein intake when it comes to muscle growth, while making you feel and perform much better in the process. Okay, so finally, let's look at carbs. To maximize strength training performance, testosterone production and well-being, a high intake of carbs are also very important. That's why you want to keep the fat intake at 35% max to leave more rooms for carbs, which will fill out the rest of your calories after protein and fat has been set. Okay, so the next step after your macros are set up is to actually start counting and tracking your calories and macros. Now, counting your calories and macros is the first step towards being able to enjoy your diet as much as possible, while also seeing very predictable results in the meantime. So here's what to do. To count your calories and macros, weigh each food you intend to eat, then input that quantity in an app such as MyFitnessPal. Your goal is to consistently hit your calorie and protein targets that you calculated earlier. Carbs and fat can be within plus minus 15 to 20 grams, as they are not quite as important to hit as diligently as calories and protein. Okay, so the final step when it comes to your diet is to find a way to make being in a caloric deficit or surplus as effortless and enjoyable as possible. By doing so, you will have an easier time sticking to your plan consistently, which is the key for success. I found that using intermittent fasting, which allows for big meals, is extremely beneficial on satiety and enjoyment, especially during a cut. And it's also a great tool for controlling weight gain and to make sure that most of the weight you gain during a lean bulk is actually muscle mass. If you want to learn more about intermittent fasting, then make sure that you watch these videos after you're done watching this one. Okay, so let's look at the second objective, which is to gain muscle. There's no other way to gain muscle than making sure you get stronger over time. If you want to go from skinny fat to ripped, then getting stronger over time within the 4 to 8 rep range is a highly effective and, at least in my opinion, enjoyable way to ensure that muscle growth occurs. In fact, let's say that today you can lift 60 kilos for sets of 6 on the bench press, and within a year you improve your strength and can now lift 90 kilos for the same number of reps. By increasing your 6 rep bench press strength with 30 kilos, your chest, triceps and anterior delts has no other choice than to get bigger. And here are the beginner to intermediate strength standards and the respective physiques that you can achieve by following the training routines, which we'll look at in a moment. Now, in order to get stronger and actually reach these strength standards, you must have an effective training routine. And if you are a complete beginner, here's the training routine I recommend that you use for the first 3 to 6 months on average. And here's how you set up progress to get stronger with this routine over time. Just pause the video if you want to note down the routines, or better yet, get access to my free video course, The Path to a Godlike Physique, where these programs are also included alongside a lot of additional information that will help you get ripped as effortlessly as possible. You can find a link to the free course down in the description. Now, the reason why we are using mostly low rep training in the 4 to 8 rep range is that we need to use weights that are heavy enough to cause muscle growth. In the beginning, you are far too weak to get a good training stimulus from high rep training, as the weights you would be using is going to be very, very light. By doing sets in the 4 to 8 rep range, you are getting full muscle fiber recruitment, mechanical tension, and enough volume per set to effectively promote muscle growth at your stage. Because in order to build muscle as quickly and effectively as possible, then you must match the amount of training you do with your recovery capacity. And in the beginning, your muscles has the potential to grow very quickly, but their recovery capacity is very low. Because of this, it's best to train each muscle group frequently in the beginning, but with fewer sets each time. And with the routine I just outlined, you train each muscle group twice per week. By doing so, you take advantage of the fact that your muscles adapt quickly, and you will find yourself stronger each time you hit the gym. However, remember that this only works by doing few sets per session in order to match your work capacity. So adding a lot of additional training will likely only hinder your gains at this stage. After a few months, somewhere around 3 to 6 for most people, you will adapt and be able to handle more training. So to keep making fast progress, we increase training volume a bit, and we do so by using this novice to early intermediate routine, which would usually work for another 6 to 12 months on average. And the way to make progress with this routine are the same as with the beginner one. Again, just pause the video or get access to the Path to a Godlike Physique down in the description. Now, this routine is mainly created to build a strong and proportional looking upper body, so focus lies on building your chest, upper back, shoulders and arms. However, this routine is not optimal for leg growth, since legs will only be targeted once per week. And this is because people typically grow their legs a lot faster than their upper bodies in the beginner to intermediate stages. And this can potentially create an unbalanced physique. But if you don't care about that and your goal is to get a set of powerful legs, all you have to do is add another leg day to your regimen and make it a 4-day upper-lower routine instead, which would look like this. This routine will develop your entire body better, however, it will require more energy and time spent both training and recovering to be effective. There we go, these routines will work well for up to 1.5 or even 2 years on average. After that, you will have adapted more and are going to need an even more advanced program, which is outside the scope of this video. Okay, so there you have it, the step-by-step process that will have you go from skinny fat to ripped. Now, to quickly recap, it all comes down to focus on cutting if you're a bit on the fatter side and lean bulking if you're a bit on the skinnier side. Then you cycle these by staying within the 8 to 15% body fat range. And in the meantime, you should have an optimal strength training program set up. This is to consistently get stronger in the gym, which will ensure that you put on a lot of high quality muscle mass in the long run. Okay, so there we go. If you liked the video, make sure you hit the like button, and if you have any questions or ideas, make sure to ask them in the comment section and I'll be glad to answer them for you. And also don't forget to subscribe for more videos coming your way every Wednesday. Thanks for watching guys, and I'll be seeing you soon. Bye.